This is Tom Meyer, Superintendent, Bellevue Community School District in Bellevue, Iowa, coming to you with this month's Believe in the Blue update that way. And this is an update from the board meeting last evening, July 8th. We had some resignations. Trisha Pickett is resigning middle school volleyball, and she will actually become one of the assistant high school volleyball coaches. And then Stephanie Peniston has resigned her role as a library or media specialist, associate that way, to work with some other things that way. Want to thank Stephanie for her time there and what she did. She did great things for our kids and for the program as a whole. So thank you very much, Stephanie. And then obviously Tricia moving on to the high school volleyball program that way. Recommendations for hire. We had a new fifth grade teacher based on Diane Bell's resignation last month. It's Katie Heilman. She lives in Dubuque, is a very energetic person who has a lot of great experiences with teaching and including upper elementary that way. We also approved Jacob Huntley for the drama director. He is also our new vocal music teacher. Natalie Vernon, who was one of our English teachers coming in this year for assistant speech. And then Trisha Pickett, we're moving from half-time 4-year-old preschool to full-time 4-year-old preschool based on an increase in numbers since our last staffing analysis that way, which is a good thing for us that way. So we will have multiple sections of 4-year-old preschool that way. We have 4 sections of that basically. So anyway, that's that. Recognize any visitors. We had one visitor there. Josh Richter was there last evening. We had a public hearing to address some possible discrepancies in district boundaries. No one spoke at that part of the meeting, so we did go over written boundary descriptions and basically change some of those boundary descriptions to reflect how we are doing taxation already. And this was initiated by the Dubuque Community School District that way. They had been taxing a few areas that are actually in the Bellevue District, and Bellevue District have been taxing a few areas that were actually in the Dubuque District. Basically, we just evened that out and made that work. No one will notice a change. It will have no impact really on anyone as a whole. So I did talk about some common curriculum things. One of the things we talked about there, we talked about multiple things there, but we talked about Bellevue graduate and college credits that way and where we're at. Our Bellevue students last year took 413 courses. Our seniors alone achieved 1,260 total credits, which is actually about 21 credits per student that way, which is amazing. We had some students with 40, 50, and the 30s, and we also had some with 3, 4, 6 credits that way. But an average of 21 for all of our graduates that way, of over 60 graduates. So congratulations to them. That way, we also talk about college readiness and where our students are at. There's an analysis that goes on at the state level of students who need to take a remedial course in English or math. Obviously, you do not want any students to have to take a remedial course that way, but so you want to make sure they're taking the proper courses in high school, but also that they're meeting the standards and understanding what they're doing. The Bellevue College Readiness has improved dramatically in the last 3 years in both English and math, and we are at a lower level, which is a good lower level to be, than the state level or the AAA in both of those areas that way. Also talk about ACT scores. We have all of our students take ACT, take the ACT. The class of 2019, the one that just graduated, had a very strong score that way overall. But then when we look at top 50% or top 60%, which is ultimately just about the amount of students who take the ACT at the national level, we are above the state average that way. We're below the state average when we look at all of our students. But like I said, we're one of the few districts in the state of Iowa that gives it to all students that way. But when we take our top 50% or top 60%, we are above the state average in all areas. And that information will be online for you to look at that way too. Let's talk about the Iowa School Performance Profile. We are an acceptable school. I have an issue somewhat with how we rank schools. We do not go around, as someone wrote to me, we do not rank police stations, we do not rank fire stations, not rank public libraries or park districts, but we want to rate schools. And many things that are measured cannot tell you how successful you're going to be later in life. And those of you who know me know I feel this way pretty strongly. We have to look at something beyond test scores when we look at students. It's impossible to measure determination, grit, resiliency, and to also match up with their personal interests and how we're doing. We always have to be looking at that as a school. How are we meeting the students' interests in the way that we're teaching? If it's not relevant to their lives, the chance of them wanting to learn it or learning it at all become diminished. We have to always make sure we're meeting those needs that way. Some other facility updates that way. One, we had some lights installed in the middle school, high school parking lot based on a grant, partially funded from a grant from the Dubuque Racing Association. If you drive by at night, you'll notice the parking lot is much brighter, especially if you've seen it in the past, how dark it was. We put up several new lights that way. That's really will brighten it up for after events, especially concerts at night, athletic events, football games, basketball games, other things like that, volleyball games. We start getting dark as the summer winds down. It starts getting darker than the winter time, our winter concert, and then on through. So this will make a huge improvement that way for safety of our students and also any visitors to the district as well. Ceiling tile and lights were installed in what we would call the middle school hallway to make it much brighter. Very similar project to what we did in the high school hallway last year, even though they're both I use those old terminology yet that way. Classrooms are getting ready. The second floor of the elementary classrooms are waxed. The high school hallway and the Bellevue Middle School High School is waxed. The middle school hallway, they're just starting to wax the rooms. Summer school just ended last week, or the week before, I guess. So we will be moving down to the first floor where summer school is at to do those classrooms. Then we'll start the hallway. So things are progressing that way. We have registration July 29th and 30th. The goal is to have hallways ready by then, but that may be a push this year because it is a little earlier than normal. Also repaired a gas line, gas leak that we had running from the industrial tech room out to the music room and art room. Had to dig up some areas with that. Also, we'll be looking to have the physical plant equipment levy continuation of a referendum. We'll have a referendum for a continuation of some funding for the school district there that we have to have every 10 years that way. It is a voter-approved one for $1.34 per thousand. It is not a new tax, or whatever you want to call it. It is not. It cannot be used for salaries. It cannot be used for travel. It cannot be used for supplies, printing costs, other things. There's a whole list of things that can be used for, which I will put online that way. But it really helps with our buildings as a whole and maintaining those buildings that way. So just so you know, and also multiple other districts across the state have this as well. That way, it's used. We have kind of a general outline here of how it's been used in the past that way too. We're also going to have a meeting, a work session before our next meeting on August 12th on the use of the land that we purchased about a year ago now, or maybe not quite a year ago. How are we utilizing that land? It's being farmed right now and used for a couple other things that way. We have some ideas here that I'll put online. That way you can look at those. We will have a more broad description in the future. One of those is obviously still looking at a potential Bellevue Elementary School on that land that way. One thing that was on the agenda that we did not do is the new school bus. We have received a $25,000 grant, but we do not have permission from the state to utilize that grant yet. So we're holding off on opening bids or anything like that until we get the official permission. That way, we looked at board policies, approved all of those as they were revised. And one of those, the substitute teacher pay, we raised from $95 a day to $110 a day. Which seems like a big jump, but we have not adjusted that in about 8 years that way. It was time to adjust that. We're right around the conference average and the area average, maybe slightly below that, but we plan on looking at that every couple of years now. So you know some information about that. IASB legislative priorities. We chose 4 priorities to pass along to the Iowa Association of School Boards for their legislative sessions that way and some of their priorities, and they were mental health support, special ed funding, school funding policy, and then bond issues. That way, looking at bond issues and the amount of approval rate for that. We also appointed Penny Meetinger to continue as board secretary for the 2019-2020 school year. That way, level 1 investigators were approved. Jeff Raker and Jeanette Hartung Schrader, the building principals. Level 2 investigator was approved as Lynn Schwager, the chief of police in Bellevue. Equity coordinators were also Mrs. Hartung Schrader and Mr. Raker. And then the Andrew Community School District and Save Funds, instead of having a face-to-face meeting, we're planning on just sharing with them what we are doing with the funds that we receive from their students who come over that way to enhance their education. That way, we have a student teaching agreement with the University of Dubuque that we approved, which is really a formality. We went over the book iGen and had there'd be some information online you can see with that way. There's a little iGen quiz, how iGen are you, or how 2020 are you, whatever the case may be, is a little quiz there. Talks about teens and talks about growing up and youth and the whole aspect of adulting, or learning those adult things and doing those adult things, and how badly people want to do those adult things, or maybe sometimes how bad we don't want to do those adult things. So it's interesting. It talks some about smartphones and the impact that they've had on society. I think many of us would agree, positive and negative both. Then we talked about graduation survey results. There's a whole list there. We will keep graduation on Saturday for this upcoming year at 8 o'clock based on some prior commitments that people have made already, reservations. But we will be looking to move that up to earlier in the day, more than likely, based on survey results for the 2021 graduating class. So some information that way, possibly looking at a 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, something like that. But still keeping it on a Saturday, as 93% of people still wanted to keep it on a Saturday. There are multiple comments about that as a whole, and I will put some of those online as well. And FBLA returned from San Antonio with a very successful trip there. We have the board members will meet with the new teachers for a meet and greet at Flathead Fifth on August 19th at 6:30. November 21st is the Iowa Association of School Board Convention. And then we talked just a little bit about the upcoming board meeting on August 12th at 6:30. That way with a work session at 6 o'clock. On that note, it's been a long update for you here, but I think worthwhile, hopefully. If you have questions, feel free to give the school a call at any time. Obviously, remember registration is July 29th and 30th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. That way, I encourage you to come out during those times. We will be able to access and utilize credit cards at that time, too. To pay for things, or debit cards, whatever you want to call them that way. So just the information that way. Have a great one, everyone. Enjoy your summer.